2, 1. Good evening and welcome back to our Parent University sessions. We are on our 4th Parent University talking about our re-entry plans for the 2021 school year. This evening we're going to be talking about food service and transportation. And so I'd like to introduce our presenters. We have Mark Willis. He is the director of Sodexo. And we have Lynn Carl. She is the executive director of transportation. And so we'll be turning it over to them shortly. I want to talk a little bit about how this works this evening if you're new to this. We've scheduled about an hour for the presentation. Generally, they don't go that long. And then we take your questions until 7. Unless your questions end sooner, and then we'll end whenever that time is. So here's how you submit your questions this evening. We're live streaming via YouTube. If you have a question, you can put that in the comment section. Please refrain from using that space for discussion or for general comments, as we really want to be able to capture the questions in that section. Also, we'll be removing anything that's inappropriate, so please refrain from being inappropriate. And also, please keep your questions to the topic being presented. We don't have the experts here on other topics, and so if you do have a question not relating to transportation or food service, please feel free to email us at rrpsreentryplans@rrps.net, and someone will definitely get back to you on your question there. And we are ready to go. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and he is going to talk about food service. Thank you, Mark.
Beth. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So curbside meals will change over to regular pricing starting August 7th. We will have the same locations that we currently have for the emergency feeding. There are 8 locations. Starting on August 7th, they will run Monday through Friday. The times are listed on this slide. We will only be offering one choice per day. It will be a cold item, something that you can reheat at home just for food safety and handling. That may change as we move further into the school year and we get some logistics worked through and production. We may move that to a hot item. Prepayment is encouraged. We will not be taking or giving change. We will accept checks, money orders. You can pay online, but this will reduce contact and handling. Students do not need to be present to receive a meal. We will have Chromebooks and hotspots available to pull up children or students by their student ID number. So they do not need to be present to pick up those meals. And then starting on September 8th, we will move into more locations depending upon meal counts. Next slide. So as I said earlier, provide your student ID number or the ID card that you have. I'm sure that process will be adding more student IDs as we move along. But if you need information prior to that starting, please reach out to our office, the food service office. We will not be doing weekend meals. This is only going to be a Monday through Friday program. Milk will be offered. You do have the ability to decline those milks if you start to have a lot of those left over from each day. So that is an offers versus serve item. The curbside locations through September 7th will stay the same as they are today. We may change that on September 8th, depending upon traffic on site. There will be bus traffic, there will be student parking, there will be parent pickup, so we may have to adjust some of those locations at that time. Breakfast and lunch can be picked up at the same time. They will be purchased, but you certainly can pick up both of those meals at the same time. Something different this school year, there is grant money out there that is going to be subsidizing the reduced price meals. So there will be no cash charged or price charged for anybody that's qualified as a reduced meal. Next slide. Once we enter into the cafeteria, which is on September 8th, we'll be serving Preschool at that same time, the K-5, and then alternating A and B classes or groups Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday for the fourth and fifth graders. The cafeteria will have signage available to help with traffic flow and directional service. Social distancing will be helped with having floor stickers in place where the cashier is, where the serving lines are, and that should help guide the students. We do have breath guards that will be available at the cashier station and at the point of service where you pick up the meal. All staff and students will be wearing face shields or masks at all times. Free and reduced applications for this coming year are now available online. That was starting July 1st. Your last year's status, if you had an application on file, is good through September 23rd for secondaries and September 26th for elementaries. But you will need to complete a new one this year for the remainder of the school year. As we said earlier, prepayments are encouraged. No change will be given, but you will be able to have that money added to your account. And we do accept money orders or checks also. There is a My Mealtime account if you don't currently have one of those. You may go online and set up that account. You'll need your student ID number to create that account, but then you can keep track of balances and any items or purchases that your child has made. No a la carte items will be available for the elementary schools except for milk. Next slide. So some other changes for the elementary program. There's not going to be any fresh fruit and vegetable bars. We're not going to have the self-service water stations. We will be able to provide water when asked. You'll get that from the server from behind the line. There will not be silverware stations. We'll have individually wrapped utensils. Share box will not be in place this year. And there won't be any self-service condiment stations for ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, things like that. We do plan on offering 2 hot menu choices on a 5-week cycle, and that menu is available or will be available on the internet for you to view. Serving times may be adjusted depending upon what time the buses get in, how many students we have in the dining room at a time. So look into the future to see what those serving times will be, but I'm sure they will vary by site. To help out with speed of service, we'll have fruit and vegetable will be pre-portioned, so the students won't have to scoop anything. It'll just be right on the tray. They'll be able to ask for what they would like. Next slide. Lunch periods may be extended to increase the social distancing. That'll vary by site. We will be serving breakfast in the morning and lunch in the afternoon, so it'll be 2 different times on the inside. Disposable trays will be the only item that we use. There won't be any washable things. As we said earlier, sporks and forks will be individually wrapped so that there's less contact. We do have a couple of new managers this year. It's Sandia Vista, Martin Luther King, and Joe Harris. So please be patient with these new managers. They're going to be learning the students' names and getting the traffic flow and learning some of those things. So please be patient at those schools. Menus, as I said earlier, are going to be available on the internet. We will produce some hard copies, so we'll have those available in the classroom for students to take a look at what's on the menu for the week. Slide. So for the secondary schools, it'll be a little bit different. Very similar. We won't have their fresh fruit and vegetable offering bars or the water stations. The silverware stations will not be available also. That's just going to be individually wrapped. No share box, no condiment stations, but we will have additional choices in the secondary. So you'll have 6 hot choices. So there'll be a couple of sandwiches, pizza, and then some favorite items that we'll have a variety of, and that menu will also be on the internet. Serving times may vary by site also for those groups. And then we also will do the pre-portioning for the fresh fruits and vegetables for the students. Student IDs are definitely encouraged in the secondaries also. We will have menus posted on all the serving lines and in the classrooms. Serving times will vary depending upon that school, and we may extend those lunch periods also. The secondary schools appear to have more outdoor seating available, but that will also vary by site, but we will make use of that where possible. Next slide. Here is the link for where you can view our menus, and that is at the district or the rrps.net website under food services. We will have the August menu up, and then shortly after that, we'll have the September menus up. Next slide. The secondaries, we will offer these items to help with social distancing. We'll have some snack bars in different areas as we did last year. We tried to limit the number of items, make sure that they're individually wrapped where possible, and just some of the favorites that the students love. So that is our goal, to have these choices available when school starts. Next slide. This is a kind of a slide showing how we're going to lay out the cafeteria. So there are going to be work guidelines that our staff will follow. They will have a questionnaire that they will complete each day, talking about where they've been, do they have any symptoms, and we will get a sign-off sheet for each of those employees prior to coming to work. This also tells them about avoiding public transportation, disinfecting areas where possible, washing your hands often and immediately after exiting your car. And then we will have social distancing areas in our kitchens to make sure that our employees are staying 6 feet apart where possible during the prep process. Next slide. These are some of the signage that will be available. We'll have directional signage coming into the cafeteria. There will be floor stickers. There'll be signs talking about making sure that you're wearing a face mask and that you're social distancing, and then the temperature checks also will be promoted. Next slide. The dining room, each site will be a little bit different, but we have gone to the sites to look at how many students can be in the cafeteria at a time. They will be marked, and they will be facing in one direction, and there will be a traffic flow that they follow, that they do not pass each other when sitting down or exiting the cafeteria. The dish room window will be closed because we won't have any dishes to wash, so they will dispose of their trash as they walk out of the dining room. And then in between each group of children, there will be a 15-minute break where custodial or facilities department will come in and sanitize all of the tables prior to the next group coming in. Next slide. We will mark the enter and exit side, so there will be an entrance only area where the students will come into the cafeteria. They will go straight to the cashier. She will have a plexiglass barrier. Then they will go to the serving line to get their meal. Then they will go sit down, and then they will follow the signage to exit the dining room. Next slide. This is a picture of just how the cashier station is going to be set up. It's a little difficult to see, but there is a plexiglass shield there for students to limit the contact with each other. That they will be wearing masks or face shields. There'll be a floor sticker to where to stand to make sure that we keep children as 6 feet apart where possible. Next slide. And that's it.
Hi, I'm Lynn Carl with Student Transportation. Thank you everyone for being here. I look forward to giving our presentation tonight to let you know how transportation is going to look. Next slide, Beth, please. Right now, our routes are being adjusted for efficiency and timeliness, and so that we can balance the loads. As everyone knows, we are not permitted to have full loads, and so we are looking at making sure that none of the buses are overloaded. So we are working on that as we speak. We expect to have routes completed by August 17th. There will be no bus passes this year. We do not need them. Actually, we probably won't have them at all in the future. Bus stop information can be found on our website. If you go to rrps.net, you click on departments, then click on student transportation. There's a stop sign right there that says find your bus stop. You can click on there. You would enter your student's ID and date of birth, and it will tell you what bus they're on, the bus stop location, as well as the bus stop time. Please remember that these routes will not be ready until August 17th, so you won't be able to access anything until then. Also on the same website, right above that stop sign, there is the form where you can fill out a form to either opt in or opt out of bus transportation. That form, we would like to have that filled out by July 31st. And so if you can click on there and enter for your student, whether they will or will not be riding the bus, that way we have more accurate counts and we can do a better job at routing our buses and getting them to school in a more timely manner. Next slide, Beth. Thank you. We're also working hard to keep all of our staff safe and healthy so that when they come to pick up your kiddos, they're good, safe and healthy for them so that they can transport them to school. Each employee will have their temperature taken when they arrive to work. Each employee must wear a mask the whole time that they're at work, whether they're in the bus lot, in the office, and particularly on the bus. We do have a traffic flow pattern in our building, as many of the schools do, just like Mark was talking about for the cafeterias. We have lots of signs on the walls, on the floor, etc., so that we remind everyone to keep 6 feet apart, remind them that they must wear their masks, and all of the safe distancing practices that we need to have, marking 6 feet apart so that when they stand in line for keys, etc., that we're taking care of that. Hand sanitizer is at every entrance and exit as well, placed through and as well as placed throughout the office. We want drivers and attendants and all of the staff to use that hand sanitizer regularly. So we're making sure that we have those. Next slide, Beth. Thank you. As Sal Maniaci mentioned last week in the Parent University, we really count on the parents to ensure that their students do not have any symptoms of COVID-19 before sending them to the bus stop. That is our biggest line of defense, is to make sure that the parents are checking their kiddos to make sure that they're feeling well enough to go to school. On the special needs buses, students with disabilities, attendants will be taking those temperatures as they come to the bus. The attendants will also be wearing a mask and a face shield. If any student comes to the bus with a temperature of 100 degrees or more, they will remain at home with their care provider as we pick up and drop off those kiddos at home or at a care provider's location. So they are right there where they can be left with someone. In addition, we'll notify the school to let them know that this kiddo will not be coming today, so that they're aware of that kiddo not coming to school that day. As we had mentioned again earlier in board meetings, the buses will be ventilated. That is something that has been proven to make a big difference, as well ventilated areas. The windows will be open, every other window. We also have roof hatches on the buses that will be open to provide extra ventilation. Students will use hand sanitizer as they board the bus. We have hand sanitizer that is mounted on the buses, or will be mounted on the buses. We're working on it now, that the students can use that as they board the bus. For any of the students that have to be loaded on the bus through the wheelchair lift, we will have hand sanitizer available for them to use if they need that. Buses will have extra masks for students that do not have one, or if they forgot their mask, they dropped it in the dirt, we'll have extra masks for them. We will also have a box of gloves and paper gowns on the special needs buses for the driver, attendant, anyone on there that needs to use gloves. We also have those paper gowns that we can also put on the kiddos if that need be. Disinfecting the bus after each school, after the AM and PM runs, will be done every day. A thorough disinfection will be done on Wednesdays. When they disinfect the bus after the AM and PM runs, what they have is they have a spray bottle of disinfectant that we receive from facilities, and they will be spraying down the bus. They also have microfiber cloths that they can also use to wipe down the buses. On Wednesdays, we'll do a much more thorough disinfection. We will be thoroughly spraying the bus. We have a type of fogger apparatus that we can fog the bus with disinfectant. We will also be making sure we wipe down even brackets that hold down the seats, wipe down the walls, the windows, things like that on the buses. Next slide, Beth. General ed students, again, we ask that parents make sure that their kiddos do not have any symptoms of COVID before they come to the bus. Per PED regulations, we can have a maximum of 47 students on a 71 passenger bus. So that is why we're also looking at our loads to make sure that we don't have over 47 kiddos whenever we come to our last stop for that school and make sure we're not overloaded. So that's why it's real important we try and find out what kind of kiddos will be riding the bus, what schools are going to, et cetera. Each bus will have a box of gloves on board, just like the special needs buses, and each bus will also have extra masks for any student that doesn't have one, forgets it, drops it, anything like that. As I said earlier, parents should ensure that their kiddos don't have any symptoms of COVID before they send them to the bus, and all students must be wearing a mask to board the bus, and hence that's why we have the extra mask for everyone. Next slide, Beth. For the general ed students, the drivers will observe the students as they get on the bus, which they do anyway, and they'll be looking for wellness. If a student appears ill, they will seat them up front right across from the driver so that they can better observe them and keep an eye on them. We will notify the school that we have a kiddo that is possibly not feeling well. So that way, when they get to the school, they can see the school nurse and they can take the kiddo's temperature and determine whether they need to be placed in the care room for further care or watching. So we just want to make sure that those kiddos are taken care of in case they aren't feeling well. And so that's why we want to seat them up front so we can just keep an eye on them in case they get worse, or we can have a better report once we get to the school. Again, we will be ventilating the bus. We will have every other window open at least, and the roof hatches will be open so they get lots of ventilation, lots of fresh air. Students will use hand sanitizer as they board the bus. Again, that will be mounted right as they board the bus, and so they can use that when they get on the bus. And also, we will be disinfecting the bus after AM and PM runs, again with spraying down and with microfiber cloths, and a thorough bus disinfection on Wednesdays, where we'll use the fogger and do a much more thorough wiping down of walls and brackets and everything else in there. Beth, next slide. All right. Any questions for either Mark Willis or myself?
All right. Thank you, Lynn and Mark. We appreciate that. We are going to go ahead and get to our questions. We have a few tonight. The first question is, does RRPS still have a driver shortage? Will having 50% capacity impact the delays in students getting home at night?
At this red hot minute, we are not short on drivers. There are some drivers that have chosen not to come back this year, and we have several that we had tested out while we were off for COVID that got their CDL licenses. We have a few more coming on board, but we do have buses out there that have banners on them for advertisement, and we're going to get some more out there. So we always need bus drivers. Every bus company everywhere needs bus drivers. So if anyone knows one, we'd be happy to have them apply online at rrps.net. Regarding the timeliness of buses with the smaller loads, that really should help them get to school in a more timely manner. The fewer kids you have to load, the less time it takes at the bus stop. So in theory, they should be getting there even slightly earlier than they have been in the past.
Thank you, Lynn. The next question is, will our child be automatically opted out from the bus use list if we have decided to do the 100% option, or do we need to do the opt-out survey?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. No, if you have uh, submitted your request to do virtual learning, we have received that list of kiddos, and so we will double check that against our list to make sure that we do not count on those kiddos riding the bus if they're going to do virtual learning. So no, you do not also need to do the opt-out form for busing.
Thank you, Lynn. Our next question, how close will kids be to one another when sitting on the bus?
Well, that's a good question. It, first of all, it depends upon their size. So obviously the little elementary kiddos, they have, oh, depending upon the size of the kiddo. Of course, if we're talking kindergarten, first graders, they're obviously a lot smaller than fifth graders. But they'll have about a 1.5 foot distance between them on the bus, possibly more than that. As the kiddos are older and bigger, then there is less room between them. The bigger high school kids, it's probably about maybe 6 inches, 8 inches, kind of depends upon the kiddo.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question, if we opt out of bus transportation at the beginning of the school year, can we change our minds later in the school year?
Thank you for asking that one too. Yes, you may. If later on, depending upon how the school year goes, and you decide, you know what, I would like my kiddos to ride the bus, you are certainly welcome to fill out that form. We check it every day to see which ones are new so that we can schedule it from there. And we know what our loads are going to look like. Also, again, if you have opted in to ride the bus and later on you decide you don't want to, please fill out that form again to let us know that your student will not be riding the bus any longer.
Thank you, Lynn. All right, Mark, this question is for you. How will you accommodate students with special dietary needs?
That is a great question. We actually have special needs children that will be starting on August 17th, and we have set out requests to all of the schools to provide us with any uh, dietary needs. We do have some on file from last year, but if your child does have a diet prescription from a medical authority that asks for any modification to the meal, we just need to get a copy of that on file. We can hopefully do a pretty quick turnaround. You know, if there's a lactose intolerance, we can have soy milk or almond milk available. But if there are other diet prescriptions that are needed, they can certainly reach out to our office. We can provide our email for direct access for that, and then we can keep track of that, get those documents completed, and make the necessary adjustments at the schools.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, our next question. Lynn, this one's for you. Will students have assigned seats on the bus so they are always sitting with the same student each day?
Yes, they will have assigned assigned seats. It will take the drivers a couple of days to get them assigned. Because the bus load is going to be smaller, it will be a much quicker process to get them assigned. And so they will be seated next to and across from and in front of and behind of the same kiddos each day. We really want to make sure that we adhere to that. The only difference may be is if there is a kiddo that is sick that would move up front so that we can keep an eye on them. And they would just be up there, you know, for that one bus ride or whatever the situation may be.
Thank you. If we have two siblings riding the bus together, can we request that they sit together?
Certainly, we try to accommodate that a lot, especially for the elementary kiddos. That's kind of a big thing for them, so that they feel comfortable on the bus. However, I do want to also say that at the same time, some siblings don't get along very well, and so we need to spread them apart on the bus. And so just be aware that that may sometimes happen, but we do try to seat siblings next to each other so that they are more comfortable on the bus. But it's ultimately the bus driver's job to maintain their passengers on the bus and maintain their safety in whatever manner that may be.
Thank you. All right, our next question. Who will monitor the kids on the bus to ensure they don't remove their masks? Will there be attendants on each bus?
There will be attendance on the special needs buses, as I had spoken earlier. On the general ed buses, there will not be attendance on there. It is the driver's responsibility to make sure that those kiddos are keeping their masks on. And I'm not saying that that is not going to be a challenge for them. They have to watch their kiddos in the mirror all the time anyway, so that they can make sure that there's no horseplay going on and changing seats and all the things that happen on a bus. And so that's just one more factor that they need to watch for, is keeping their masks on. We will be notifying schools if students continually take their masks off on the bus, so that they can help us resolve that situation with that kiddo.
Thank you. This question, how is the 6 feet of space allowed with social, or the 6 inches of space allowed with social distancing guidelines?
That's another very good question. We are seating the students on the bus as per directions that we received from the public education department. They have said to seat students two to a seat, and that is when we are considered a yellow school and or a yellow state, that the number of our cases are lower, and so that is, we are considered a yellow state, and so we are up to the 2 students per seat as per PED, or Public Education Department guidelines.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will a new cloth be used every day to wipe down the buses?
Most certainly. We will have new cloths every single day. In fact, well, I believe that we are planning on having them turn in those cloths after the AM run, and then get another one for the PM run. And so they will have plenty of cloths there. For some reason, let's say there is an ill kiddo on the bus. We don't want to use that after the next school and the next school to wipe down seats. So they will have more than just one cloth on the bus so that they can use that.
Thank you, Lynn. And what is our capacity again on the buses now versus what they can typically hold?
We for public education department guidelines, we can have 47 kiddos on a 71 passenger bus. We do have a few larger buses that are 77, 78 passengers, but not very many. But the normal large bus that you see at the bus stop is a 71 passenger bus. We will have 47. And the reason it turns out to 47 instead of 48 is because one seat in the back is much smaller than the other seat. And that's because to make accommodations for the emergency exit in the back of the bus.
Great, thank you. If we opt into bus transportation, can we still take our kids to school ourselves from time to time?
Most certainly. We just need to know what is the maximum number of students that we could have on that route, so that we can better uh, plan for the number of kiddos on there and better plan the routes. We may have to move some stops around to balance that out. But certainly you aren't committed to having your kiddos ride the bus every day. That's perfectly fine if it's just periodic.
Thank you. Okay, Mark, we have one for you. Will there be another PEBT for students on free or reduced lunch if they are 100% virtual?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that yet. We are still working through the first round of those EBT cards, but I will reach out to Santa Fe and find out from the Public Education Department if that's going to be something that moves forward.
Great. And guess what? That is all our questions for this evening. So we are done early this evening, and we responded to some questions. If you find that you think of something later that you would like to have addressed, please email us at rrpsreentryplans@rrps.net. Also, we will put this presentation up on our website. So if you want to go back and watch any of it or review any of it, that will be available as well. Again, I want to thank Lynn Carl, Executive Director of Transportation, and Mark Willis, our Director of Sodexo, for joining us this evening and sharing information on transportation and food service. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch this evening's Parent University. We have two more this week. Tomorrow night, we are going to be talking a little bit about homeschool versus RRPS. We've received many questions from parents about if they should be homeschooling or what does virtual look like compared to homeschooling. And so really we kind of want to address some of those questions so parents can make a decision, an informed decision. And also we want to make sure that they are comfortable with what we're providing. And then on Thursday evening, we will be talking about our special services plan and the plans around students with disabilities, students who have 504s, IEPs, gifted students, etc. So please join us either tomorrow or Thursday. And remember to email us with your questions. Again, is our RPS reentry plans at rrps.net. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.